masuk ke Dewan. Semua hadirin dimohon berdiri. Kau berdiri untuk nyanyian lagu Negaraku dan Negeri Pahang. Para hadirin dipersilakan duduk. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera dan salam sehati sejiwa memerangi rasuah. Yang berbahagia KPKPj Tuan Hairuzan bin Muhammad Amin, LHS Hamim, Pengarah Suruhanjaya Pencegahan Rasuah Malaysia Negeri Pahang. Yang berbahagia KPKPj Tuan Rosli bin Husin, Pengarah Suruhanjaya Pencegahan Rasuah Negeri Kelantan. Yang berusaha KPKPj Puan Zakiah Binti Hassan, Timbalan Pengarah Akademi Pencegahan Rasuah Malaysia merangkap panel forum. Yang berusaha Puan Norashikin Abdul Aziz, Ketua Penolong Pengarah Jabatan Dasar Percukaian Lembaga Hasil Dalam Negeri juga merangkap panel forum. Yang berusaha YBhg Reni Fazri bin Muhammad, Wakil Pengarah Suruhanjaya Pencegahan Rasuah Malaysia Negeri Pahang. Yang berusaha Puan Razimah Binti Hashim, Wakil Pengarah Yayasan Pahang, merangkap Pegawai Integriti Yayasan Pahang dan Pengurusi Perhubungan ACIO Negeri Pahang. Yang berusaha Encik Muhammad Johari bin Abdul Kadir, Ketua Unit Integriti Universiti Malaysia Terengganu selaku moderator forum pada hari ini. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian, alhamdulillah, sama-sama kita memanjatkan kesyukuran ke hadrat Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala atas limpah perkenannya kita dipertemukan dalam program Symposium Integriti dan Anti Rasuah 2022 sempena sambutan Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa. Bagi pihak majlis, saya mengalu-alukan dan merakamkan setinggi-tinggi penghargaan atas kebersamaan tuan-tuan dan puan-puan sekalian yang dapat meluangkan masa untuk menjayakan program ini. Untuk makluman semua, Simposium Integriti dan Anti Rasuah 2022 ini diadakan bersempena sambutan Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa yang jatuh pada hari ini 9 Disember 2022 disambut setiap tahun di seluruh dunia. Tidak ketinggalan, sambutan yang sama dilakukan di Malaysia dan pada tahun ini, Suruhanjaya Pencegahan Rasuah Malaysia (SPRM) telah mengadakan kolaborasi dan memberikan kepercayaan kepada Persatuan Pegawai Integriti Bertauliah Malaysia atau ACIO untuk bertindak sebagai rakan strategik penganjuran dan turut bekerjasama dengan lembaga hasil dalam negeri dan Yayasan Pahang. Sesungguhnya keberadaan kita dalam Dewan yang tersergam indah ini sebagai tanda menzahirkan komitmen kita bagi pihak Malaysia untuk memartabatkan negara dalam agenda memerangi rasuah. Bagi memulakan acara kita pada pagi ini, bagi memohon keberkatan dan kelancaran majlis dengan segala hormatnya mempersilakan PPS Badruddin bin Abdul Razak untuk memimpin bacaan doa. Dipersilakan.
Kitab Al-Fatihah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Arrahmanirrahim. Maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ya Allah, ya Rahman, ya Rahim, kami merafakkan rasa kesyukuran kepadamu kerana dengan izin-Mu dapat kami berhimpun untuk menghadiri program Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa pada hari ini 9 Disember 2022. Ya Allah, jadikanlah perhimpunan ini sebagai satu program yang dirahmati. Berkatilah ia dari awal hingga akhirnya serta berjalan dengan lancar, teratur, berjaya lagi sempurna. Dan semoga program ini dapat mencapai matlamat burna yang diingini. Ya Allah, ya Hayyu, ya Qayyum, eratkan silaturahim dan semangat perpaduan di kalangan kami. Kurniakanlah kami taufik dan hidayah-Mu. Bimbinglah kami ke arah kejayaan dan kesejahteraan, sama ada di dunia maupun di akhirat. Jadikanlah kami sebagai ahli masyarakat yang sentiasa amanah, berintegriti dan berpegang teguh kepada prinsip moral dan etika yang tinggi seiring perintah-Mu, ya Allah. Jadikanlah kami rakyat Malaysia rakyat yang bebas daripada gejala rasuah, ya Allah. Ya Allah, ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram, sinarilah hati-hati kami dengan cahaya dan hidayah-Mu. Semoga dengannya kami mudah menerima dan menghayati serta mengamalkannya. Ya Allah, setiap pertemuan pasti ada perpisahan. Maka jadikanlah perpisahan kami selepas ini sebagai satu perpisahan yang diberkati dan dilindungi. Dan janganlah Engkau jadikan pada diri kami ini dan mereka yang bersama kami kebinasaan dan mengelakkan kami dari memperoleh rahmat-Mu, ya Allah. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina azabannar. Wa qina azabannar wa qina azabannar. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Majlis merakamkan ucapan terima kasih kepada PPS Badruddin bin Abdul Razak atas pimpinan bacaan doa sebentar tadi. Semoga majlis kita diberkatinya juga. Atur cara kita akan diteruskan dengan perutusan Presiden Persatuan Pegawai Integriti Bertauliah ACIO Malaysia yang berbahagia Tuan Ahmad Sabri bin Muhammad yang telah disediakan secara maya. Untuk itu, marilah kita sama-sama hayatinya bersama. Dipersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Saya Ahmad Sabri bin Muhammad, Presiden Persatuan Pegawai Integriti. Assalamualaikum jenayah rasuah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Saya Ahmad Sabri bin Muhammad, Presiden Persatuan Pegawai Integriti Bertauliah ACEIO Malaysia. Hari ini, 9 Disember, setiap tahun seluruh dunia menyambut Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa. Kita di Malaysia melalui Persatuan Pegawai Integriti Bertauliah telah mengambil inisiatif untuk menjayakan sambutan ini bersama-sama dengan rakan-rakan strategik yang lain. Sambutan kita pada tahun ini diadakan secara dua konsep ataupun dua pendekatan yang dibuat. Pertama, sambutan dibuat melalui Symposium Integriti dan Anti Rasuah di beberapa lokasi terpilih. Sambutan kedua diadakan melalui webinar Integriti dan Anti Rasuah. Kedua-dua program ataupun acara sambutan ini telah disertai oleh peserta-peserta daripada seluruh negara. Mengambil semangat tema Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa pada tahun ini yang turut disambut seluruh dunia, saya ingin mengajak kita semua untuk bersama-sama dalam memerangi jenayah rasuah. Let us uniting the world against corruption. Thank you.
Dengan segala hormatnya mempersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Terima kasih kepada pengurusi majlis yang dihormati Pendulung Kanan Pesuruhjaya Rosli bin Husin, Pengarah SPRM Negeri Kelantan, yang dihormati Pendulung Kanan Pesuruhjaya Zakiah Binti Hassan, Timbalan Pengarah Akademi Pencegahan Rasuah Malaysia, yang dihormati Puan Razimah, Pegawai Integriti Yayasan Pahang, yang dihormati Puan Norashikin bin Abdul Aziz, Eksekutif Lembaga Hasil Dalam Negeri Malaysia, yang dihormati Puan Rizki daripada Wakil Pengarah Negeri Terengganu, Ketua-Ketua Jabatan, Pegawai SPRM, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian. Pertamanya, bersyukur kita kepada Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala kerana di pagi yang indah ini kita dapat sama-sama berkumpul, berhimpun dan dapat bertemu bagi melaksanakan satu program dan juga kita untuk melaksanakan amanah membenteras rasuah dengan sebaik yang mungkin. Sesungguhnya amanah yang telah diberikan, terutama amanah yang telah diberikan kepada SPRM dan juga amanah yang telah diberikan kepada kita, ada amat berat dan hanya mampu disempurnakan dengan kerjasama yang erat dan kukuh sesama kita. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian, ucapan terima kasih dan penghargaan kepada rakan strategik SPRM, iaitu Persatuan Pegawai Integriti Bertauliah ataupun dikenali dengan ACEIO, kerana dapat melaksanakan sambutan Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa atau dikenali sebagai HARA peringkat Zon Timur bagi tahun 2022. Terima kasih juga diucapkan kepada pihak Yayasan Pahang dan juga pihak panel jemputan yang terdiri pada SPRM dan juga Lembaga Hasil Dalam Negeri. Ucapan terima kasih juga saya berikan kepada semua peserta-peserta yang hadir pada pagi ini bersempena dengan Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa atau HARA peringkat zon timur yang terdiri daripada syarikat-syarikat multinasional negeri Pahang, Terengganu dan juga Kelantan. Penyertaan tuan-tuan dan puan-puan merupakan terjemahan kepada harapan dan juga komitmen berterusan rakyat Malaysia untuk menjadikan negara kita, iaitu negara Malaysia, bebas dari jenayah rasuah. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian, pada 31 Oktober tahun 2003, Pertubuhan Bangsa-Bangsa Bersatu atau PBB telah menetapkan tarikh 9 Disember sebagai Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa ataupun International Anti-Corruption Day. Hari ini disambut untuk meningkatkan kesedaran masyarakat akan bahayanya gejala rasuah serta keperluan usaha-usaha dan kerjasama antarabangsa bagi menangani masalah rasuah. Jadi pada hari ini, pelbagai aktiviti pencegahan rasuah diadakan di seluruh dunia. Sebagai agensi pembenterasan rasuah di Malaysia, SPRM dengan kerjasama ACIO mengambil inisiatif menerajui kempen pencegahan rasuah bersempena dengan Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa ataupun dikenali dengan HARA. Dan usaha ini bukan sahaja menunjukkan komitmen tapi dalam mendidik masyarakat tentang bahayanya rasuah. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian, apa yang lebih istimewa adalah sambutan yang diadakan pada tahun ini menyaksikan program yang sama dibuat secara serentak di seluruh negara pada hari dan waktu yang sama, iaitu pada hari inilah, pada hari Jumaat. Oleh itu, SPM bersama-sama rakan strategik akan mengadakan sesi forum yang akan disertai oleh wakil daripada pihak SPM dan juga lembaga hasil dalam negeri sebentar lagi. Ia selaras dengan tema yang ditetapkan oleh Pertubuhan Bangsa-Bangsa Bersatu, iaitu United Against Corruption, sempena yang merupakan tema Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa 2022 adalah Building a World United Against Corruption. Pelaksanaan program pada hari ini adalah sempena kempen kesedaran anti rasuah kepada masyarakat, khasnya kepada syarikat-syarikat multinasional. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian, saya mengambil kesempatan ini mengucapkan setinggi-tinggi terima kasih kepada semua pihak rakan strategik SPRM dalam menjayakan program pada pagi ini. Ucapan penghargaan juga saya berikan kepada Persatuan Pegawai Integriti Bertauliah ACIO sebagai ahli jawatan kuasa induk bagi program yang diadakan pada hari ini. Semoga usaha kita yang diadakan pada hari ini diberkati Allah Subhanahu wa taala dan mendapat ganjaran pahala yang sewajarnya. Bersempena dengan hari yang penting ini, saya tegaskan hasrat SPRM adalah untuk menjadikan sebuah agensi yang profesional, agensi yang berkesan dan usaha-usaha dalam pencegahan rasuah. Program hari ini merupakan salah satu cara untuk pihak SPRM mendampingi dan bermesra dan bekerjasama dengan setiap lapisan masyarakat. Harus diingat, usaha membanteras rasuah bukan tanggungjawab SPRM semata-mata, tetapi kita semua mempunyai peranan dan juga tanggungjawab dalam usaha membanteras rasuah. SPRM percaya pendekatan seperti ini mampu mendatangkan rasa gerun kepada mereka yang berangan-angan untuk terlibat dengan rasuah atau mereka yang telah bergelumang dengan jenayah ini dan tetapi masih terlepas ataupun tidak ditangkap ataupun tidak dikenakan dengan tindakan penguatkuasaan. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian, bagi pihak SPRM, saya sekali lagi mengucapkan terima kasih kepada semua yang hadir pada pagi ini, terutama kepada rakan strategik yang bersama-sama membantu menjayakan sambutan Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa ataupun HARA bagi tahun 2022. Saya pasti usaha mulia kita pada pagi ini mendapat ganjaran yang setimpal daripada Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. Jadi itu saja yang ucapan saya pada pagi ini. Jadi saya sudahi dengan wabillahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Majlis merakamkan ucapan jutaan terima kasih di atas ucapan aluan yang disampaikan oleh Ketua Penolong Kanan Pusuruhjaya Tuan Hairuzan Muhammad Amin Elias Hamim, Pengarah SPRM Negeri Pahang sebentar tadi. Yang berbahagia tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang dihormati sekalian, untuk makluman, simposium seumpama ini turut berlangsung secara serentak di 3 buah lokasi yang lain beserta satu webinar yang diadakan secara atas talian. Sehubungan itu, majlis akan diteruskan dengan ucap tama oleh Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Seri Haji Azam bin Baki, Ketua Pesuruhjaya SPRM, yang akan ditayangkan secara maya di layar. Marilah kita sama-sama tumpukan perhatian ke layar di hadapan Dewan dan majlis dengan segala hormatnya dipersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. A very good morning to all of you. First of all, let me welcome you and express my sincere gratitude for your commitment in joining us to commemorate the International Anti-Corruption Day. Today marks the 20th year since the United Nations General Assembly adopted the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. It also designated 9th December as International Anti-Corruption Day that is celebrated all over the world. Here, we call it HARA or Hari Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa. Malaysia is proud to join the international community to commemorate this day with a shared theme, Akan at 20, uniting the world against corruption. This is a recognition that the fight against corruption is not the job of one entity. Indeed, tackling this crime is the right and responsibility of everyone, and only through the cooperation of the involvement of individuals, community, civil society, law enforcement, media representatives, the public and the private sector can we together unite to overcome this heinous crime. Further, cross-border global collaboration is increasingly necessary to fight corruption and fraud, as financial crimes are no longer confined within the boundary of a country. Hence, in this globalized world, the theme uniting the world against corruption is apt and timely. Ladies and gentlemen, corruption impacts negatively on every dimension of society. It fuels conflict and inhibits peace and development of undermining the rule of law, worsening poverty, facilitating the illicit use of resources, and providing financial for illegal activities that threaten national security. The repercussions of corruption are manifold and detrimental to the country's economy, political stability and security system, which is why in Malaysia, the MACC applies a holistic approach using a three-pronged strategy, namely enforcement, investigation and prosecution, and corruption prevention and community education. Today's nationwide hybrid seminar, led by our Association of Certified Integrity Officers, ACEIO, has garnered over 1,000 participants from more than 100 multinational and commercial companies based in Malaysia. Our panels firstly will discuss the provision of corporate liability, while the second panel is on the offering of tax incentive through corruption prevention activities. The corporate liability provision came into force in June 2020. Under Section 17 Capital A of MACC Act 2009, a commercial organization could be prosecuted if any of its employees or associates commit corruption for the interest of advantage of the organization. The company is liable if it fails to prove that it has taken adequate measures to prevent the occurrence of corrupt practices in their business dealings. This principle of this provision is not merely punitive, but it is designed to ensure that companies have taken adequate measures to prevent corruption within their organizations. Secondly, and this is good news for companies, corporate and private companies are eligible to apply for tax deduction for the amount equal to the amount of expenses incurred for organizing anti-corruption activities. This is an incentive for the corporate sector to collaborate with the MACC to conduct anti-corruption programs as their corporate social responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, preventive measures are just as important as law enforcement, as the MACC is empowered by the law to do both with the vision of creating a corruption-free society. Ladies and gentlemen, preventive measures are just as important as law enforcement, and the MACC is empowered by the law to do both with the vision of creating a corruption-free society. To this end, we need the support of all stakeholders to adopt zero tolerance towards corruption. Finally, highlighting the theme of this year's International Anti-Corruption Day, let's collectively unite against corruption. Thank you.
Begitulah tadi ucap tama dan harapan yang disampaikan oleh Ketua Pesuruhjaya SPRM, dan semoga kita mendapat manfaat daripada apa yang disampaikan. Kini tibalah kita ke acara kemuncak Symposium Anti Rasuah Antarabangsa 2022. Majlis akan diteruskan dengan sesi Forum Integriti dan Anti Rasuah. Forum ini akan menampilkan panelis hebat yang dibawakan khas kepada tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. Sebelum saya menyerahkan majlis ini kepada Tuan Moderator, izinkan saya memperkenalkan sedikit latar belakang beliau. Beliau yang dimaksudkan adalah Tuan Muhammad Johari bin Abdul Kadir, merupakan Ketua Unit Integriti di Universiti Malaysia Terengganu, berkelulusan Sarjana Pentadbiran Perniagaan dari Universiti Malaysia Terengganu dan merupakan Ketua Unit Integriti pertama dilantik untuk melaksanakan fungsi integriti di UMT dan telah mendapat pengiktirafan sebagai Pegawai Integriti Bertauliah CEIO daripada Badan Pengiktiraf di bawah kendalian SPRM pada tahun 2017. Berfungsi sebagai perancang, penganalisa dan pelaksana fungsi unit integriti sebagai focal point kepada pengurusan isu-isu berkaitan integriti, bertujuan untuk memantapkan integriti bagi menentukan warga menjunjung dan menegakkan prinsip integriti serta accountability ke arah mencapai sistem penyampaian awam yang lebih cemerlang. Terdahulu, beliau pernah berkhidmat sebagai Ketua Audit Dalam di Universiti Malaysia Terengganu dan juga pernah berkhidmat selama 9 tahun di Jabatan Audit Negara. Beliau juga merupakan seorang penceramah atau fasilitator bagi program berkaitan integriti, kewangan, pengauditan dan pengurusan. Setakat ini telah mengendalikan lebih 1,000 kursus atau program berkaitan terutamanya dalam pengukuhan integriti, pencegahan rasuah, pengauditan, pembangunan manual seragam atau SOP dan manual kualiti ISO. Beliau juga bergiat aktif dalam Persatuan Pegawai Integriti Bertauliah Malaysia atau ACIO dan dipilih serta dilantik sebagai Naib Presiden Publicity dan Penerbitan. Beliau juga aktif dalam kerja-kerja kesukarelawan dengan menganggotai Angkatan Pertahanan Awam Malaysia dan beberapa NGO lain untuk berkongsi idea dan pengalaman dalam bidang integriti, pencegahan rasuah, pengurusan dan kewangan. Untuk itu, saya dengan segala hormatnya ingin menjemput Tuan Muhammad Johari bin Abdul Kadir moderator forum untuk mempersilakan panel forum ke pentas utama bagi meneruskan acara. Untuk itu, saya dengan segala hormatnya menyerahkan majlis ini kepada Tuan Muhammad Johari bin Abdul Kadir untuk mengendalikan Forum Integriti dan Anti Rasuah 2022. Dipersilakan Tuan.
Okay, Chairperson. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good evening, our honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. So, how's today? Everything okay? Okay. So, our panel, everything okay? Okay. So, thank you to our SEIU for this chance to be to conduct this forum, and then today is our day for means bahasa macam tak seronok pula kita kita dalam bahasa Inggeris. So nak dapat pandangan lah dulu kan, sebab saya nampak dekat sini ramai daripada kita. So nak saya conduct dalam bahasa Inggeris ke atau bahasa Melayu? Both lah. Both language. Okay, insyaAllah. So, kita try untuk conduct this program as well as our plan. And then today we bring our good panelists to share our knowledge and share our initiative for Malaysia to against corruption, especially to Malaysia. And then, so we try to be here, we try to be seen at the world as a Malaysia without corruption, insyaAllah. So today, our panelists, my best friend also from MACC, KPKPj, Puan Zakiah Hassan is very known in MACC, well trained as a speaker, as a prosecutor also. And then more experience in MACC. And also our second panel, Puan Norashikin, also senior executive from Lembaga Hasil Dalam Negeri, also well trained and then good knowledge in policy, and also good person in the doing policy and dasar dekat LHDNM. Okay. Kalau sekiranya saya nak perkenalkan panel ini lebih lanjut, saya rasa saya akan mengambil masa yang too long because they are very good speaker, but we try to fulfill this forum with a meaningful thing that we want to share. Jadi tuan-tuan dan puan, for this session we try to divide by 3 sessions. First session, we go for presentation from our discussion panel, and then second session, we go for forum, which is a question from me to a panelist, and then the third session, we go to the floor. So, untuk peserta, jangan bimbang, tuan-tuan dan puan boleh mengambil peluang ini untuk kita berdiskusi. Kita akan sediakan mic, kita telah sediakan mic di depan tuan-tuan dan puan, and then kita juga akan sediakan satu sistem yang dikenali sebagai Slido. Sekiranya tuan-tuan dan puan rasa segan nak ke depan, boleh je teks dekat sistem Slido berkenaan, dia akan dipaparkan sekejap lagi untuk tujuan tuan-tuan dan puan kemukakan soalan dan saya akan bertanyakan kepada panel, insyaAllah. Jadi tuan-tuan dan puan, to be short, we go to our first session, okay? We go to our session, and then I would like to call Puan Zakiah to share about MNC corporate liability key to corruption-free business in Malaysia. So, please for the first session, for your presentation. Thank you.
Terima kasih Tuan Moderator, Tuan Johari. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to all of you. Thank you for inviting me to be one of the panelists here. Dan saya juga mengucapkan terima kasih juga kepada Tuan Rumah, Pengarah SPRM Pahang, Tuan Hairuzam, Pengarah SPRM Kelantan, Tuan Rusli, juga Wakil Pengarah SPRM Terengganu, Tuan, dan Puan Azimah, Wakil daripada Yayasan Pahang, ya, dan para panel yang satu lagi iaitu HDN. So saya mengharapkan pada pagi ini kita sama-sama dapat menerima ilmu, apa ilmu yang sedikit yang saya kongsikan pada pagi ini menjadi manfaat kepada semualah, terutamanya kepada syarikat-syarikat di luar sana berkaitan dengan corporate liability. Dan saya juga mohon izin sekiranya saya boleh berbahasa demi bahasa di dalam presentation saya, kerana kita mengambil spirit International Anti-Corruption Day, and the slide that was being prepared is in English. So tapi tak apa, kita boleh rojakkan bahasa kita, dan saya akan mulakan sekarang, ya. Terima kasih. Okay, tajuk kita pada pagi ini adalah berkaitan dengan fokus kepada corporate liability, which is known as Section 17 Capital A, dan tajuk simposium kita secara khususnya adalah MNC Corporate Liabilities, Keys to Corruption-Free Business in Malaysia. Okay, let me start my session with sharing the result from a quite recent survey done by PwC Global Economic Crime and Fraud Survey yang dijalankan pada tahun 2020, and dia respondennya adalah ramai juga, dalam 5,000 orang, tapi participant di Malaysia adalah lebih kurang 100 lebih, dan kebanyakannya daripada top management, board of directors and CEO, ya, C-suite level. Okay, and it's quite alarming because in 2018, Malaysian respondent, one of the questions in the survey says, Malaysian respondents that have been asked to pay a bribe, 2018 hanya 11%, but in 2020 it rose up to 25%. So it's more than double on that. There's another question that mentioned Malaysian respondents that have lost business opportunities because competitors paid a bribe, also 11% in 2018, and in 2020 it's risen even more to 30%. So this is where I think this platform to discuss about corporate liability is vital. Having said, having looked at this survey, and another part of the survey is also mentioned, this is more on the adequate procedures, that only 49% have dedicated program. This is more on companies, okay, have a dedicated program to address bribery and corruption. So it's not even half, I mean close to half, but actually this is the defense in case there's any cases related to companies, and you know, the programs, the procedures should be set in place actually to become a defense for the company. If you look at the right side, 49% either they don't do the risk assessment. Risk assessment can be the enterprise risk assessment and can also be the corruption risk assessment. So I think a few years back, corruption risk assessment is not really you know, being imposed in companies, let alone companies which are SMEs. So there are other companies also, the big companies that not you know, focusing on corruption risk management. They're focusing on the fraud risk. So in that manner, corruption risk assessment should be embedded also in the enterprise risk assessment. Because kat sini kita nampak the survey is only 49%, and also 31% have informal or undocumented policies and procedures in relation to fraud and corruption. This area is also very important because whatever policies that you may develop should be documented in whatever manner, whether it's encrypted in a disk or in hard copy or soft copy, it should be documented. It's because this will be looked at the court in case there's any cases relating to corporate liability. Another survey that was being mostly referred to, this is quite way back in 2013, and this survey is was carried out by KPMG Malaysia Fraud, Bribery and Corruption Survey 2013. Close to 10 years, but it's very relevant. If you look at one of the questions says, and the result says 71% of respondents believe that the bribery and corruption is an inevitable cost of doing business in Malaysia, and 64% believe that business can't be done in Malaysia without paying bribes. So these results are quite alarming, even though it happened in 2013. But if you compare to the survey that was done by PwC, this also correlate with the results that happened there. Okay, by having said that, we can see that if this is ongoing and if the negative result keep on rising, there can be an impact of corruption, a major impact of corruption to corporations out there. And basically this impact will distort priorities within the organization. It can also increase the cost of doing business with corruption, bribe paying, or the amount that is being allocated for bribery. Such cost for such project can be escalating, and the quality may be dropping because the allocation is not on the quality of the product or the raw material, but it's allocated for the bribe payment. And it can also pose a serious legal and reputational risk if in case any cases related to the company, and it can detrimental to the company in doing their business. And it also undermines fair competition because some company may not opt to pay bribes to get projects. Some company would willing to do anything to bid a tender, so that undermines fair competition there. And it also impedes long-term investment for stakeholders out there. They may not, choose a company who is, I wouldn't say practicing, but who opt to pay bribe, to bid tender. And other than that, they can erode shareholder values and negates long-term sustainability of a company. Okay. Lastly, it impedes business growth, having corruption being widespread in a company, right? So those are the impact, and it's quite a major impact to companies if this is not tackled. All right. Then, after having looked at the survey and also the impact to corruption, I think this is a high time, it's in time to have a corporate liability provision. And this provision was passed in Parliament in April 2018. It's quite a way back, 2018. And it was enforced 1st June 2020. And I think most company knows about this, that it was being enforced in 2020. Because I've encountered some corporations that are not ready yet. I think it's about time if the management of company will look seriously into this. The objective why we give 2 years grace period is for the company to understand the new provision that was being passed and also to prepare and take necessary action needed. Okay, why we would introduce the provision, the corporate liability provision, is that we will want to promote or inculcate a corruption-free business environment in a daily business operation. And we would also like to encourage the companies to develop adequate procedures, SOPs in relating to anti-corruption, good governance, integrity, in order to prevent corruption in their organization. And lastly is to encourage commercial organizations to play active role in preventing corruption, because there are events where there are board of directors, there is no agenda on corruption or even preventing corruption during the board meeting. So perhaps, this is an avenue whereby the management can escalate the issue in corruption in board of directors level so that it is discussed at the very top as well, right? Okay, basically this is in summary or in short of offenses by commercial organizations. Commercial organization, if they are commit in corruption, in order for them to obtain or retain business or retain advantage, its directors and those involved in management of its affairs, officers and partners, and any associated person that involved in the daily operation of the organization could be personally liable for the same offense. It is strict liability offense. There are only one defense in court, that is the person did not consent of the corrupt act and they exercise due diligence to prevent the corrupt act in their organization. And this due diligence is widely known as adequate procedures, and I will also speak on adequate procedures in short. This is the area where I think quite lacking in commercial organizations. They will want to know, how far should they go, how in depth that they should look at adequate procedures, looking at the size of the company and also the structure of the company. And if under corporate liability, the conviction is that fine of not less than 10 times the sum or value of the gratification, or 1 million minimum, whichever is higher, or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 20 years, or both fine and imprisonment. So the fine is quite high for this provision. So that's why corporation out there should take a look seriously on this provision and how to develop the adequate procedures within the organization. And government have issued guidelines on adequate procedures, and this guideline is, I would say, very brief, and it's on policy level. You can refer these guidelines on the web. They're everywhere in the web, but some companies opt to appoint consultant out there to help them develop the adequate procedures within the company. However, it would be best if it is being developed by the company itself, because they would know what are their operations, the daily operations. So it is a defense for the commercial organization to prove that they had in place adequate procedures designed to prevent associated person with a commercial organization that are involving in the corrupt activities. Okay. All right. So this next part that I would want to share is on the defense side. I would want to stress on the defense side actually, because I think most of us would know the, I would say, the ingredient of corporate liability. However, the area that needed clarification would be the defense and the principle that we use under the provision with acronym TRUST, TRUST. All right, and the first one is top level commitment. Okay, why we say top level commitment is that this is the initial part in an organization that has to start from the top. It has to require what you call a commitment by the board of directors, by the management, top management, and it is being executed by the level below management. And this is to assure that the stakeholders, of the organization that the company fully comply with the applicable law and regulation, and also to monitor the level of integrity and governance in the company. And of course, the most important thing is to provide budget and human resources in regards to corruption preventive. Because there are companies out there, or even, even in integrity unit, when this provision is first established or is first approved, there are no resources or platform. There are only one employee in the integrity unit or IGU, integrity governance unit. So it's quite difficult for the employee to move around, to inculcate anti-corruption culture in the company if the resources is not being set aside by the management. So top level commitment is the number one. It should start from here, actually, the statement from the board of directors and also management. The second one will be the risk assessment. Risk assessment is very vital in any planning for, preventing corruption or to uphold governance and integrity. Like I mentioned before in the survey, not many companies, I think about 41% have an informal risk assessment being done in the company, especially those involved in corruption risk, because you need to understand what are the risks involved in your daily operation. Say, example, if the risk area evolve in the procurement section or unit, so that is the area where the company should start with to understand the risk of corruption might occur there. So this risk assessment is recommended to do in every 3 years. However, it depends on your emerging risk. If there's any product or any investment that you would want to venture abroad, then the risk assessment should be done at the particular year. So it depends on the company risk assessment approach. Okay? And why we have this risk assessment is that this will improve any weaknesses in the system. There are events that some company might be intimidated by doing corruption risk assessment, because I was experiencing an organization when I was being instructed to do a corruption risk management workshop. They would want me to address it as an integrity management workshop rather than corruption risk workshop. So by having said that, we can actually, I wouldn't want to say label, some management or, top management still uncomfortable of using the word corruption in the company, whereby this is actually an area that, one of the vital area that the company should look at. So it can start with risk assessment. That would be best if you would want to develop your own anti-corruption plan in the company. Okay. All right. This is the third acronym, U, under tech control measures. Okay. When I mention under tech control measures, I believe most of the companies would have at least some control in the organization. For example, as simple as HR department, they would have a control when they recruit, someone. They would want to vet an employee. That is one of the control, at least. And if the company would want to appoint board of directors, they would want to vet the board of directors, check their backgrounds and whatnot. And perhaps these controls within the company, they are scattered in the company. Some company, big conglomerate, they have their own governance department, and they have their own sub-board committee under the governance or under the risk management to tackle this control. So I have listed down here some examples: policy and procedures related to anti-corruption, name gift policy, gift and entertainment, donation and sponsorship, including political financing, facilitation payment, anti-bribery management system, ISO 37001. I think some company already have this on board. It's an international recognized, and we also have an MS standard for that. And Organization Anti-Corruption Plan, OECP, which we got it from the National Anti-Corruption Plan. And the most important part also is to carry out due diligence. This is very important because there are cases whereby due diligence is being surpassed. Some of the proposal paper was not being discussed properly. It was not being brought up to the risk management committee. It was not being brought up to the board even sometimes. And there are cases whereby the paper was being acknowledged in the meeting. It was included in the minutes of meeting, but it was not presented in the board of directors meeting. So, and due diligence can carry out, can be due diligence in terms of human. When I mentioned about the employee vetting, board of directors vetting, it can also be on your projects, on your investment. So due diligence comes a very critical part, for the management to approve on a certain projects or certain investment. Okay, and of course, the reporting channel is very important. This is to encourage reporting on corruption. And normally, when we mention reporting channel, we would advise that the reporting channel would be safe, trusted, and that people are willing to go in, to report any activities on corruption. And make sure that all of these policies and procedures are documented, because if you are being audited, then you have this in place. Okay. All right. The fourth part will be the systematic review, monitoring, and enforcement. By having policies on board, you have the document on board. You have to look, you have to review the documents. Systematic review, when we say systematic review, it will be like every yearly or 2 years once, to look into any policy that's outdated or perlukan pengukuhan, and this policy also should be enforced properly. Because some company might have the policy on board, but it was not being reviewed or it's not being enforced at the same time. So continuous assessment is very important for us to improve the policy. And we appoint competent individuals for internal audit, and can also appoint an external auditor to look into our policy and procedures, including, if you are going through the ISO certification 37001, there's external parties who will look into your policy and procedures so that you can be certified. Okay. And lastly is to monitor all your staff with regard to the policy, code of ethics, code of business ethics, and take action to those involved in corruption and misconduct. All right. Lastly is that all these policy on board have to be communicated somehow, internal and external. All right. And internal being said, your employees. External is for your vendors, for your what do you call that? Your people who's running business for you, not in your payroll of the company, right? So it also involve not just communication, but also involve on training for your recruitment. Some companies, they already started with, giving some slots for introduction to anti-corruption. Some company even have asked the employees to do some kind of task in regards to their policies, anti-corruption policies to the employees. This is to increase the knowledge of the employees on anti-corruption per se. All right. So those are all the trust elements that you can focus on under the educate procedures. And we also look at the emerging case law around the country, and it looks like they indicate that the corporate entities often, I would say often assume the role as a vehicle for bribery. because for those, I think this I focus on the MNC and conglomerates. There's some companies that are using elaborate financial frameworks, accounting techniques, and those the allocation of fund involved for illegal transaction is being hidden under the elaborate financial framework. I think what contribute to it also are the complex corporate structures, whereby the company may have many subsidiaries around the world, and it may pose difficulties to know who are actually doing the wrongdoing in the company, right? Therefore, it's good for a company to establish their adequate procedure to tackle, to support the corporate liability provision, and to send a clear message that corruption is not a part or a way of doing business now. Okay. Therefore, tone from the top is critical for doing the right thing. It should start from the top, not from bottom up. Okay. And we can also incorporate the principle of corporate governance into the daily business operation. And most company is encouraged to be committed to the anti-corruption effort and have a true champions and provide support to these champions. For example, if you have unit integrity employees within your corporation, please give full support to them, because there are some grievance out there, like people will say employee who's dealing with the integrity unit or the integrity governance unit, IGU, they sometimes feel that they are alone in doing their business. So these are the areas that we need to change and help and support each other. And we can showcase good people and good corporate governance practices. We keep on educating, like for example, this forum, and also take enforcement action if there's any illicit or misconduct relating to corruption. Okay, this I refer to, okay, I shall speed up. Okay, I'll refer to the PwC survey again, since this survey was done back in 2020. It's quite direct to the point. This survey mentioned that the company should be ready with this provision, even though it's been passed like 18 years ago and enforced just 2 years back, should be stressing and corruption risk to develop the adequate procedures. And also we should promote a speak-up culture to develop a whistleblower channel within the corporation and to encourage employees to speak up if there's any wrongdoing or illicit or misconduct. And lastly is to strengthen defense in the move of time. This is what we say is that since the corrupt activity is becoming complicated, is becoming more advanced, so the procedure and process should follow along, which means it should be looked into and should be improvised daily to tackle this emerging misconduct. Right. I share here, I think it's quite cluttered here. I share here some of the initiatives that you can look into. This is under the U acronym, Undertake Control Measure. You can look into the ISO, to the NACP, whistleblowing policy, conflict of interest policy, board of charter is very important to from the top. Gift policy, there are many questions on this, on gift policy, whether is it a no gift policy or whether it's a gift policy. So you can get clarification on that, during the panel session. And also asset declaration, anti-corruption bribery policy, and so forth. I just want to share one case. I mean, it's not just sharing. I just want to, highlight this case because this is an Airbus case that, involved, many parties, and involved quite an alarming amount of fines within Airbus. At that moment, Airbus was being investigated by SFO. And if you look at Airbus, one of the giant company in the world, providing the aircraft services in terms of military or the commercial aircraft. But even by having anti-corruption policy on board, they are being charged by corporate liability provision under the UCBA 2010, and their cases is being investigated in 3 countries, which is UK, the America, and also the France. And the amount of fine that involved Airbus is 3.6 billion, goes to SFO 984 million. PNF is in France, agreed for 2.08 billion euro fine. DOJ in America agreed to pay 525 million of fine. Okay, so I just want to share this and keep on thoughts in thoughts that for a big company like this, if the court find them that they are not practicing or they're not establishing a proper adequate procedures, they may be involved or being charged under the corporate liability provision. And even though they go into DPA, which is deferred prosecution agreement, which Malaysia doesn't have that yet, they exit by suspending the prosecution. However, the deterrent factor, like I said, the impact to corruption, it goes to their image and reputational risk, because when they enter into DPA, they have to make known to the public that they are being investigated, and to show a deterrent to other companies that a big company with an established procedures, but because they don't implement it, they don't enforce it, then they will be involved in this under the corporate liability provision. So with that, I think will end my sharing session. Thank you very much, and happy International Anti-Corruption Day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alhamdulillah, thank you, Puan Zakiah, for the wonderful sharing for vision of Stability Capital A from MACC Act. And then after this, I would like to call Puan Norashikin Abdul Aziz to present thoroughly for our topic for today is boosting CSR corruption prevention activities through tech incentive. For that, please welcome Puan Norashikin.
Okay, thank you to our moderator, Tuan Johari. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to all of you, in particular our directors from SPRM Pahang, Terengganu, Kelantan, our host from Yayasan Pahang, and ladies and gentlemen, as introduced by our moderator, I'm Norashikin Abdul Aziz from the Tax Policy Department of Inland Revenue Board of Malaysia, IRBM, or LHDN, lembaga yang ditakuti di Malaysia ya katanya. Okay, specifically I'm from the manufacturing, trading, mining, agriculture and forestry consultancy division, or in bahasa BK5P. P itu pengilangan, perdagangan, pelombongan, pertanian, perhutanan. Semua bolehlah bertanya sekiranya ada nasihat cukai yang diperlukan. Okay. So first I would like to thank the organizer, the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, for inviting us, IRBM, to join in the program for this International Anti-Corruption Day. Okay, and I'm invited to complement the session by Puan Zakiah just now by stating that all companies should take active actions in this anti-corruption program, and this is by the topic given to me is boosting CSR, corporate social responsibility, corruption prevention activities through tax incentive, benefit to the MNC, multinational companies, but it is actually benefit to all companies, not just the MNC, yeah? Okay, so this is the content of my presentation today. First, I'm going to go on the overview of tax incentive in Malaysia. I'm going to touch briefly on the types of tax incentive, and later I'm going to concentrate more on the main topic, which is the tax incentive for CSR program for anti-corruption activities, which is a deduction from the gross business income. I understand that most all of you are representative from companies, so it can be deducted against your company business profit. Yeah. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, what exactly is tax incentive? There is no single definition. There is many definitions. This is one of them. But most importantly, tax incentive means you pay less tax. Good news, right? Tak payah bayar cukai banyak sangat. Okay. So, what exactly the legislation which govern the tax incentive? The main one is under the Promotion of Investment Act, but the one we are going to talk today is on the Income Tax Act 1967. And there are other law and regulations as well as guideline and term of reference for each specific tax incentives, okay? The one that we are going to talk today specifically under Para 34(6)H, Income Tax Act 1967. It's not exactly section, but it's actually Para 34(6)H. H can you can remember it by HARA kan? Boleh lah ingat macam tu. Alright. And when it comes to tax incentive, there is two methods of implementation. First of all is the first one is automatic. You can just claim if you are eligible. Just claim it against your tax return. But the second one, the one we are going to focus today, it requires a process of application and approval with relevant authority. And for anti-corruption program, the relevant authority is actually MACC and MOF, the Ministry of Finance. Okay. So what are the type of tax incentive? Basically, there are four main types. The first one is income tax exemption. And then there is allowance on capital expenditure that is incurred by the company. And then there is allowance and expense deduction, and also some sort of accelerated capital allowance. But the one today is actually falls under the expense deduction. All right. So the other four I'm not going to talk much, right? So we'll just focus on this. What exactly when I talk about Para 34(6)H, Income Tax Act 1967? This is the extract from the Act itself, ITA 1967. It said that they may be deducted from relevant gross income. Relevant gross income here refer to the business income, the company profit, okay? And quite long, but most importantly is that I have highlighted it in bold. It must be expenditure incurred. Company incurred the expenditure, and it's and also contributions. It can be in terms of cash contribution as well. And the expenses is related to the public amenities and charity, or in this case, community project. And all these expenses must be approved by the minister. So under Income Tax Act, or the short form ITA 1967, The minister is actually the Minister of Finance, and the ministry involved is MOF lah, as we call it. Okay, so under ITA 1967, this para actually applicable to a person. So a person under our act can includes a company, body of person, a limited partnership and corporate sole. That means it's not just limited to company, but as the target audience today are from the companies, I'm going to use company in exchange of the taxpayers term, okay? So ladies and gentlemen, this means that this tax incentive is, you are all eligible for this tax incentive, okay? So when you go back, talk to your management so that they can be involved with MACC program and claim this tax incentive. So what exactly is CSR? Why do you want to boost the CSR? Again, for CSR, there is no single definition. This is one of them, corporate social responsibility, which means that corporate, give back to the community, give back to the society. But what exactly CSR project eligible for this tax incentive? Actually, under para 34 6H, there are many programs which may be eligible, but today specifically I'm going to talk about this program whereby MACC actually propose tax relief for company which implement anti-graft awareness program. This is one of the news article, okay, and this is in Bahasa. I didn't find the BI version. But the extract from the article is that MACC has stated that MOF has granted approval in principle to MACC through a letter dated 5th April 2021, which enable company that implement CSR program related to anti-corruption to be eligible for tax incentive under para 34 6H ITA 1967. Why approval in principle? Because the company who want to claim this tax incentive has to go through the approval process. It is available, but you have to apply for it and you must get the approval from MOF for it. That's why it is considered approval in principle. Okay. So later we are going to go through the steps on how you can apply and obtain the approval. So this is another program, syarikat menikmati potongan cukai, again in Bahasa. But what is interesting in this program, in this article, is that it is mentioned that a company who want this tax incentive must submit application and program paperwork to the MACC. And then MACC will monitor the program implementation and then review the financial statement and the cost prior to companies submitting application. Here is stated to IRB atau LHDN. But I would like to correct this information. The application not to IRB, LHDN, but to MOF. Okay, news ni salah sikit. And as I said, we will go through the steps later. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there is a guideline issued by the Ministry of Finance, MOF, in their website, and also there is one in LHDN website, www.hasil.gov.my. And I actually provide the actual link in the slide. So there is no guideline yet on specifically on the anti-corruption program under MACC. So this is a general guideline for para 34 6H ITA 1967. So it's still applicable, but for more detailed information, I think you have to contact the MACC office for the specific guideline for MACC program. So what exactly included in that general guideline is first to talk about a eligible persons. Again, as I mentioned, persons includes company in the act. And then to be able to claim the tax incentive, it must fulfill the criteria for anti-corruption project by MACC. I cannot find exactly the criteria published publicly available, so I think you have to contact the MACC on the specific criteria. But what I can share with you is the general one. The general criteria is that the program must be carried out in collaboration with the relevant authority. So in this case, it means in collaboration with MACC. All right. And then the program must benefit the general public. That means not merely the employee of the company, it must also benefit the public. And the program should not be profit-oriented and must be carried out voluntarily by the company. So I think for more information on specific criteria by MACC, you have to contact the MACC officers near you, who will be gladly assist you on this. We have all the big bosses here today from Pahang, Terengganu, and Kelantan. Right? So perhaps you can get the numbers and the name of officer in charge from the secretariat later. So as I mentioned, what exactly the steps to obtain confirmation and approval to get this tax incentive? So ladies and gentlemen, a company can only claim this tax incentive after getting the letter from MOF. So in the letter from the MOF, it will state how much the cost that you can claim and which year of assessment. Without the letter, you cannot claim first, okay? So how do we go about that? First, company must apply to MACC for the approval of CSI project. The application, as I mentioned earlier in the news, it must be supported with complete paperwork on the project or program, which include the expected cost. After MACC have reviewed your paperwork, they have to issue acceptance letter. With the acceptance letter, only then you implement the project with supervision from MACC. After you have implemented the project, you have to go back to MACC because they have to review your financial statement to see how much exactly your company has spent on the program or project. Once they have reviewed it, they have to write a, they have to give you a confirmation letter on the value of the project. So with that confirmation letter, you go to MLF for the application. In the guideline, there is application form at the back, which I said can be obtained from MOF website or LHDNM. Okay, so that is the how you apply for the tax incentive. So once you apply, MOF will then issue you an approval letter. As I mentioned, approval letter must have the actual cost, how much you can claim, and to which year of assessment you can claim the cost. With that letter, you can just claim it against your tax return, because as you all know, the tax system in Malaysia is a self-assessment system. So you just claim, you don't have to come to LHD at all. The relevant authority is MACC and MOF. So perhaps maybe the question is, what if you get the letter late, right? You already have to submit, once your company close the account, you have to submit within 7 months. The approval letter might come in later. So under section 131A, there is a provision for relief other than error and mistake. So you can revise your assessment if you already submit the tax form. But perhaps this is a suggestion to MACC for them to have reasonable time frame so that when the company implement, the approval letter and confirmation letter can be issued quickly so that they can submit it. They can claim it before they submit the tax return form, rather than receiving it later and have to revise the tax assessment, which is, I have to admit, not that easy. Nak suruh you all tu nak pulang duit tu lambat sikit kan, refund. Okay, alright. Okay, so that's it actually on the how we actually go through the process. So to the company, I'm not sure how many of you is actually from the account department or the tax department, but how does this works when you have the deduction? Okay, once you have the approval letter, it is considered as your business expense, which means in the case, I hope not, but in the case when a company does not have a profit, means there is insufficient profit to cover that cost, it will be included as part of the business loss. That means it can be carried forward until it's, for future years. The same rules for business tax law is applicable. Okay, so sebab takut lah kan tiba-tiba dah spend and then tahun tu tak make profit. That is not a problem. It is considered as a business expense. Okay. So again, laju ni. Alright, so when it comes to claiming it, as I mentioned, LHDN is the Malaysian tax system is a self-assessment system. You don't have to submit anything to LHDN, but you have to keep the record for 7 years. Sama lah, kan, kena simpan. And then if your company is very lucky, tahun tu terkena panggilan audit LHDN, kenalah memberikan, you have to give the supporting document. And what are the supporting document? The main one is actually the approval letter from the Ministry of Finance, surat tadi yang daripada MOF, which includes the amount of expense and which year of assessment. Dia akan ada, for example, tahun taksiran 2021, you can claim 1 juta. Then tahun waktu you submit borang untuk 2021, you boleh claim lah 1 juta tersebut. That's how it works. And then two, the confirmation letter on the value of service or cost of project from relevant authority. Relevant authority ni saya terlupa nak edit, sepatutnya MACC lah. Alright, so even after you have the approval letter from the MOF, we would like to see MACC letter that confirm the same value. And then of course the acceptance letter from MACC. And then if there is other relevant documents such as receipt or invoice. Okay. So as I mentioned, this expense, tax incentive is actually an expense. So some of you might be wondering, memang dah belanja kan, kenapa nak dikatakan sebagai tax incentive? In actual, under the tax law, you can only claim certain expense if it is in production of the gross income. Means that if your company is producing product A, you can only claim expenses related to product A. So an anti-corruption program cost is not exactly needed to produce product A. So by right, you cannot claim it, all right? So this is to enable companies to claim it as business expense. And you must remember that certain contribution, for example, donation, this is similar to that. Not all donations are allowed. There must be specific approval to allow that. So this is the specific approval to allow. Okay. And as I mentioned as well, to claim you must have that letter. so that LHDN, when we check, we know how much you can claim and which year of assessment. And then the expense is considered as business expense. This is important under the tax law, because when it comes to business expense, only business expense can be deducted against your company profit. And as I mentioned, if your company, I hope not, it's a good time for everyone now. If in the event the company is suffering from a loss, it can be carried forward as business loss. I also mentioned just now on donation. Donation usually the approval is given under section 44.6, subsection 44.6 of ITA 1967. So this is quite similar, but once you have claimed under para 34.6H, you cannot claim under 44.6 anymore. You can only claim once. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry for the short presentation. It's nearly the end. What I would like all of us here to applaud MACC effort to prevent corruption, because I truly believe that a company, a country which is free from corruption will be spurred to greater achievement and development. So let us all work towards that. And then for this year's International Anti-Corruption Day, the theme is uniting the world against corruption. So this is the chance for all of you to go back to your company and persuade your management, if you're not already the top management, to actually join the MACC in this effort. It is to benefit all of us and our future generation. And then I actually find it a bit shocking. Just now during the session of Puan Zakiah, she mentioned that 71% of respondents believe that bribery and corruption is an inevitable cost. And more than 60% thinks that business cannot be conducted in Malaysia without bribery. Let me remind you, corruption, payment for bribery is not an allowable business expense. I do know that some, can I call them unethical company or perhaps a desperate company which pay the bribery payment. They will disguise the payment in some sort of way so that they can deduct the expense from their business profit. And we do find them during our tax audit, we will add back with penalty. So let us now pledge, rather than paying out bribery costs, let's pay for this anti-corruption CSR program instead. Let's do that, would we? So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to close by urging all of you to contact your local MACC officers for to find out more about this opportunity, so that I hope in future I will see more anti-corruption programs carried out by all the companies that present today. And I believe that you can contact either the MACC office or Bahagian Pendidikan Masyarakat. Perhaps the secretary will provide with the details. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, I conclude my presentation today. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Puan Zakiah, for the good sharing of the tax incentive. Alhamdulillah, kita dah selesai for the first session of our forum, and then we will go to second session for this forum for question answer Q&A. From me to panelists. Okay, so everyone, everything okay? Okay, still okay? Alhamdulillah. Okay, Puan Zakiah, you go to our first panelist, Puan Zakiah. On your presentation before, we should that you share about penalties for when doing corporate liabilities offence ini. Nilainya adalah 10 kali ganda ataupun minimal 1 juta ringgit atau penjara yang akan dikenakan berdasarkan kepada apa yang diputuskan oleh hakim lah di dalam kes-kes yang diperbicarakan. Berbeza dengan kes-kes rasuah yang dikenakan hukuman, iaitu 5 kali ganda ataupun 10,000 kepada individu, kan? Yang kes-kes rasuah biasalah 5 kali ganda ataupun 10,000 minimum, dan penjara. Dia berbeza. Yang tadi atau penjara, sekarang ni kalau individu dia dan penjara. Jadi dalam kes yang melibatkan Seksyen 73 KPKA ini, adakah company yang terlibat dengan kesalahan rasuah ini boleh juga dikenakan tindakan terhadap individu itu sendiri? Okey, individu. Contohnya kalau macam yang dipresent tadi, yang saya faham adalah katakan CEO dikenakan tindakan di bawah 70 KPKA, manakala orang yang terlibat berkenaan, contohnya saya eksekutif yang terlibat, adakah saya juga akan dikenakan tindakan di bawah Seksyen 17, iaitu menawarkan rasuah kepada mana-mana pihak untuk menjalankan perniagaan? Okey, silakan Puan Zakiah.
Terima kasih Tuan Johari dengan soalan tu, quite comprehensive I would say. Sebenarnya untuk penalty kepada corporate liability, it can the amount is quite cumbersome, 1 million ringgit. Untuk saya ulas bagi pihak kat Malaysia ni, corporate liability sebenarnya kalau tuan-tuan ikuti berita kita, kesnya ada satu, tetapi saya tak boleh nak kupas pasal kes tu because dia masih lagi legal proceeding. Jadi and kita punya undang-undang pun berbeza. Maksud saya dekat luar negara the penalty can go to deferred prosecution agreement, tapi di Malaysia tidak ada provision tu. Walaupun kita banyak benchmark daripada UBA, UK Bribery Act 2010, cuma clause untuk DPA tu kita tak ambil. Kita ambil the whole package. Jadi sebab dekat UK include DPA, kita tak ada. Kita nak penalty kalau boleh kepada syarikat-syarikat lah. And in fact masa perbahasan untuk kelulusan corporate liability ni pun ada sedikit perdebatan, sebab dekat Malaysia ni tak banyak syarikat lagi, syarikat-syarikat besar, whereby dekat syarikat-syarikat luar negara dia lagi besar, conglomerate syarikat. Jadi ada yang mengatakan bahawa kita melepaskan syarikat-syarikat yang besar sebab mereka mampu membayar penalti tersebut. Jadi dalam konteks ni saya kupas kes Airbus tadi, sebab ada juga kes di UK yang dia dikenakan tindakan penjara dan juga penalti kepada syarikat. Di mana tak silap saya kes Street PLC, saya tak sebut di sini sebab dia jumlah dia tak besar. Di mana kes yang saya sebut Airbus ada juga yang dipenjarakan dan dikenakan penalti. Di mana penaltinya ada kepada 3 pihak, sebab when they go into DPA, they go into tripartite agreement, whereby kita tak ada lagi. So kita either penjara ataupun kita fine syarikat tersebut, di mana dekat Malaysia ni tidak ada precedent case lagi berkaitan corporate liability. Jadi nanti kita tengok kalau dia penjarakan individu bawa natural person dan corporate liability bawa legal entity, possible. Tetapi kita tak tahu lagi sabitan macam mana proceeding dia nantilah. Sebab satu case yang I think tuan-tuan pun well aware lah of case corporate liability ni. Cuma saya nak inform lah, nak share pada kita, sebenarnya provision corporate liability ni adalah provision preventive. Preventive maknanya is not more of repercussion ataupun mempenjarakan. Dia lebih kepada kita nak inculcate budaya bisnes yang bersih. Jadi kita cuma nak bukan nak gegarkan company tu, tak, tapi kita nak bagi lesson learned to the company, so that because dalam DPA, whenever they sign the DPA, the syarikat sign DPA with the court, with the investigation department dan company itu sendiri, mereka perlu bayar penalty dan dalam pada masa yang sama prosecution itu suspend, maknanya tak tarnish on the reputation of the company as much. They don't have to wind up the company because of, we have to think about their stock. Imagine if Airbus is being shut. You know, Airbus is one of the very giant company lah, selain daripada Boeing. Jadi kalau kata mereka shut down, the stock market semuanya plummeted, so that will affect more on the economy of the world economy lah. So that's why dia ada corporate liability provision yang dikomplementkan dengan DPA. So dekat Malaysia belum ada lagi, so itu yang saya boleh jawab soalan tuan.
Terima kasih Puan. Ada soalan ni Puan yang berkaitan dengan Airbus. Dia yang mengatakan bahawa syarikat AirAsia juga terpalit. Mengapa tiada tindakan diambil terhadap AirAsia? Sebab yang ni kita memang diwar-warkan tentang keterlibatan dengan AirAsia ini berkenaan dengan krisis Airbus itu sendiri. Mungkin ada pandangan Puan ataupun benda ni masih lagi dalam penyiasatan dan sebagainya?
Airbus case yang saya kupas tadi adalah international. Yes, there are incident whereby kejadian tu berlaku dekat Southeast Asia, not just AirAsia, ada company lain dekat negara lain lah. Tetapi AirAsia, I'm not so sure about the proceeding on the investigation, because you know that's on the investigation side. That what I know is that Airbus is taking serious tindakan lah untuk mengatasi masalah inilah di dalam kondisi mereka bila mereka dijatuhkan hukuman.
Betul. Itulah yang sepatutnya. Dia
Dia
possible benda tu berlaku, tapi benda ni masih lagi dalam telah dijatuhkan hukuman di 3 buah negara dan itu tidak melibatkan AirAsia lah sebenarnya kan. Kalau sekiranya ada dalam kes tu AirAsia, maka mungkin negara kita juga akan mengambil tindakan yang sama untuk tujuan perkara.
Maybe dah dengar dalam berita kot.
Itulah, mungkin rumus ke berita ke ada, tapi kes ini besar yang kita pernah libatkan berkenaan dengan corporate liability ini. Okay, kita tinggalkan dengan Puan Zakiah terlebih dahulu sebab makin banyak lagi kita boleh kongsikan di dalam perbincangan kita tentang corporate liability ini. Saya nak pergi kepada Puan Norashikin lah. Puan Norashikin lah. Okey, Puan, terima kasih di atas pembentangan yang baik tadi. Kita dah clear. Sebelum ni kita memang tertanya-tanya apakah insentif, tax insentif yang sebenarnya yang boleh digunakan ataupun boleh mendapat reward benefit kepada company-company dekat Malaysia ini. Dan alhamdulillah sebenarnya kita lihat bahawa negara kita melalui MACC yang telah mendapatkan kelulusan secara bersyarat daripada MOF untuk kita memberi insentif ini. Sebenarnya insentif ini pada pandangan Puan boleh tak menjadikan company-company dekat Malaysia ini sebuah company yang menolak rasuah sepenuhnya lah melalui provision yang ada di dalam akta kita tentang tax insentif ini. Okey, pada pandangan Puan?
Saya pun sebenarnya bila melihat data yang Puan Zakiah kongsikan tadi, saya bila melihat banyak syarikat merasakan, responden merasakan tak boleh buat bisnes di Malaysia tanpa membayar rasuah. Untuk pengetahuan tuan-puan, saya dulu juga auditor dengan penyiasat. So memang ada kita jumpa bayaran-bayaran sebegitu. Tapi as I said, kalau kami jumpa, kena kami charge balik, kena tambah balik dalam pengenaan cukai, kena lagi penalty. Okay, jadi saya merasakan dengan memberikan tax insentif ini sepatutnya syarikat boleh mengambil peluang. Tetapi kalau ditanya dah berapa syarikat apply, saya pun tak pasti sebab processing di MACC dengan MOF. Tapi as I said, I cuba juga cari di public website kan, tu saya tak berapa nampak. That is the reason we have this session today, because all of you are representative from your companies, and I believe that you yourself, in case you are involved in this situation, it will be very uncomfortable, right, for all of you. So this is the time for you to help your company go back and spread this awareness. It must come from each of us first, because we are our company, right? We are our organization. Organization and company are made of people. So, and to boost this CSR program, to ensure that all the company are engaged in anti-corruption program, that is the reason why Malaysian government decide to give this approval for this tax incentive. Tax incentive is a way for government to promote activities. So the activities here today is anti-corruption program or activities.
Betul. Okey. Terima kasih Puan di atas kupasan tersebut. Maknanya kita kena ambil peluang ni lah, ambil peluang. Contohnya lah kalau macam tahun depan kita nak buat juga sambutan HARA sekali lagi kan. Kalau company tuan-tuan dan puan nak menjadi rakan strategik kepada pengajar, itu pun mungkin boleh diminta pengecualian cukai melalui MOS sebagaimana yang Puan nyatakan tadi. Terima kasih kepada tuan-tuan dan puan, para peserta sekalian yang mengambil bahagian di dalam slide yang kita paparkan untuk tujuan tuan-tuan dan puan mengemukakan soalan. Saya amat menghargai soalan-soalan berkenaan dan soalan-soalan itu adalah sangat bagus untuk kita kupaskan. Dan saya nak tertarik dengan satu soalan yang dikemukakan oleh peserta kita. Sekiranya pekerja-pekerja bawahan menerima rasuah, adakah syarikat boleh didakwa di bawah Seksyen 17 KPKPj ini? Dan kita boleh juga relate dengan sekiranya ada pengaduan-pengaduan yang dibuat, ada tak reward sikit kepada pengadu tersebut kalau sekiranya betul-betul telah komit dengan kesalahan tersebut di mahkamah. Silakan Puan Zakiah.
Terima kasih Tuan Jo. Soalan ni memang popular. Pekerja bawahan menerima rasuah. Okey, kalau kita tengok spirit Section 17 capital A, dia adalah focusing kepada pemberian rasuah, maknanya syarikat yang memberi rasuah untuk mendapatkan advantage, untuk mendapatkan bisnes daripada orang luar lah untuk projek-projek ya. Tetapi kalau menerima rasuah, dia tidak. Dia jatuh kepada individu lah, natural person. Unless there is a trail, menerima tak ada, dia fokus kepada memberi atau solicit untuk memberilah. Jadi untuk itu, kalau kata syarikat yang menyuruh untuk, contohnya Airbus tu, sebenarnya kes Airbus tu, sorry saya duk cakap pasal Airbus sebenarnya sebab dia relevan sangat dengan MNC punya syarikat ya. Sebab Airbus ni dia punya setting is that they have syarikat or marketing rep all over the world. So when they appoint their marketing rep all over the world, they have allocation to pay or to bid for the tender to get the commercial projects, commercial aircraft projects. Dia ada juga space punya projects. So they have allocation, and what's lacking in Airbus is that they don't do due diligence when they appoint their marketing rep, because anybody, they don't vet. So in that manner is that Airbus has breached their code of business ethics, and in fact when Airbus is being investigated, it's not Airbus who's actually it's actually Airbus yang report to SFO because one of the credit financier detect irregularity dalam statement mereka, which involve diorang punya marketing rep abroad lah, all over the world. So in that manner for this, kalau individu memberi is on their own, but kalau menerima, untuk case 17A adalah untuk pemberian saja keluar.
Untuk tidak terlibatlah kita kata kalau sekiranya pekerja di dalam syarikat tersebut menerima rasuah, maka dia akan pergi kepada Seksyen 17 tuan. Seksyen 17. Seksyen 17 tak ada A. Okay? Seksyen 17 saja itu menerima A kecil, 17 A kecil, yang ni A besar untuk corporate liability. Jadi masih lagi boleh disiasat, dan mereka yang sebenarnya yang pertanyaan yang kedua tadi, kalau sekiranya telah dijatuhkan hukuman, sama ada reward ke tidak kepada pengadu.
Okay, this area, correct me if I'm wrong, Pengarah, this area is actually memang ada, kena make sure that it's actually sabitan sampai habis, memang itulah finalnya hukumannya.
Kalau kita
reward ni kita hanya setiap masa ni kita bagi kepada public servant saja yang melaporkan rasuah. Yang kesalahan yang melibatkan private sector tadi, kalau berhubung dengan rasuah, dia banyak kita popular dengan kes di bawah Section 16. Section 16. Dia sebab dia mana-mana orang. Section 17A small tu, dia lebih kepada public sector. Itu saja.
Okey, terima kasih kepada Dr. Rosli di atas pencerahan tadi. Kita lihat kepada keperluan dia. Memang kita ada semua peraturan-peraturan ataupun undang-undang untuk menyekat dari segi menerima dan juga penyalahgunaan kuasa yang berlaku di dalam sektor-sektor awam, terutamanya di dalam memerangi rasuah ini. Projek nak tambah lagi ke? Tak ada. Okay. Tak ada harap. Bukan. Kita gunakan program ini sebaik mungkin untuk kita memberi kefahaman. Sebab bila kita faham, harapnya kita dapat menyampaikan kepada orang lain. Saya yakin di dalam daerah ini semuanya tidak terlibat dengan rasuah, tetapi kita boleh menyampaikannya kepada yang lain agar rasuah ini dibendung seluruhnya di dalam negara kita. Okey, saya nak berbalik kepada Puan Norashikin. Ada banyak juga soalan yang ditanyakan dalam slide ini berkenaan dengan contohnya syarat-syarat yang lebih terperinci melayakkan tax deduction, dan Puan Norashikin dah nyatakan tadi juga di dalam pembintangan. Mungkin dalam bahasa yang mudahnya kita boleh nyatakan, dan mungkin ada contoh-contoh. Sebab dalam pembintangan tadi Puan Norashikin kata masih belum ada kes yang spesifik yang melibatkan tax deduction, tax incentive ini di bawah program yang ditawarkan oleh MACC ini. Mungkin Pak Norashikin boleh kongsikan dengan yang bertanyakan soalan ini.
Okay, di sini dikatakan syarat apa nak dapat tax deduction. Senang, surat MOF. Surat MOF yang ada details tu. Tapi sebenarnya untuk dapatkan surat tu, steps tu ada panjang sedikit kan. Sebab tu saya nyatakan tuan-puan, wakil syarikat perlu bekerjasama dengan pejabat SPRM untuk mengetahui. Cara paling senang sebenarnya sekiranya SPRM ada program dan SPRM wawarkan kalau syarikat contribute akan layak potongan ni. Itu cara paling senang lah. Memang terus layak lah. Sebab SPRM sendiri yang akan listkan program yang layak dan you kiranya that is cash contribution. But actually macam under this para, program tu sangat open. It can be anything up to the creativity of the company. Offhand lah saya teringat zaman sekarang ni orang suka program running kan, dah boleh lari kat luar ke apa ke. Kalau your company kiranya sponsor that program and then you put in anti-corruption team, not only you can promote your company but you can promote anti-corruption, and I believe all the big bosses here will be happy to support that. That is one example. So this section, as you can see, very wide. It just said program and it can benefit community. So in actual, it's not restricted to anything. It's up to your creativity. Thank you.
Betul Puan. Contohnya kalau macam Puan bentangkan tadi kan, Puan bentang tadi, aktiviti CSR ni mestilah tidak melibatkan keuntungan. Kan? Betul, tidak melibatkan keuntungan. Ianya mesti program CSR yang menjurus kepada anti-corruption punya tu. Kalau kita ambil spirit yang Puan bagi contoh tadi lah, kita buat anti-corruption run for company ABC. Kan? Letak company ABC dengan logo company ABC, sponsor by company ABC, and then company ABC tersebut dikenali oleh orang lain, dan sehingga dia mendatangkan keuntungan kepada company tersebut. Adakah benda tu boleh menjurus kepada MOF tidak meluluskan insentif berkenaan?
As I mentioned, sepatutnya bukanlah program yang berbentuk keuntungan. Walau bagaimanapun sekiranya ada sedikit charge lah kan. Selalu kalau program running ni, saya pun kadang-kadang join nampak cantik t-shirt dengan dia punya pingat kan. Walaupun saya join yang 3 km sampai lebih lambat daripada orang 10-20 km, tak apalah kan. sesekali. Tapi what I'm saying is that tak adalah totally without charge, because there are certain expenses that may be involved. But then, as I mentioned, you have to submit the project costing to MACC. So MACC yang akan tentukan berapa. Kalau projek tu sampai in the end company buat untung kan, expense, you nak claim apa? So this is more on voluntary basis program by the company, and this is to help the government is to alleviate companies burden lah. Bila company buat program tu akan ada financial cost. So secara tak langsung dengan memberikan tax incentive ni, katakanlah tuan-puan punya tax cost tu dah 24% kan, MNC semua very high profit, 24%. So in actual by allowing this tax incentive, you tak adalah bayar cost tu 100% sebab 24% tu you dah dapat tax deduction. That's how it works lah basically when we talk about tax deduction. Okay, thank you.
Okey, terima kasih di atas pencerahan tersebut. Alhamdulillah, kita masih banyak lagi soalan-soalan yang boleh kita bincangkan. Terima kasih kepada Tuan-Tuan. Kita memerlukan soalan-soalan lagi yang mungkin boleh membuka minda kita dan juga kita boleh discuss bersama di dalam program ini. Okey, saya nak berbalik kepada Puan Zakiah berkenaan dengan apa kita punya prinsip trust tadilah untuk kita kata educate procedure kepada company-company kan, dan company-company bersedia untuk buat contohnya macam ABMS ke ataupun OACP ataupun CRM, Corruption Risk Management kan. Adakah ini tersedia dekat SPRM, dan mungkin ni Puan juga mungkin boleh bagi pandangan sama ada kos-kos yang terlibat di dalam pengajuran ataupun penyediaan ABMS, OACP dan juga CRM ini boleh ditolak di bawah tax insentif yang dinyatakan oleh Puan Norashikin tadi. Silakan.
Okey, program-program seperti ABMS dan OACP ni adalah inisiatif-inisiatif pencegahan rasuah, di mana jika syarikat-syarikat fokus kepada educate procedure tadi yang saya ceritakan, ini adalah salah satu inisiatif yang boleh dibangunkan oleh syarikat, dan saya percaya untuk program-program OACP dan juga ABMS itu memerlukan perbelanjaan dan peruntukan ya. Terutamanya saya percaya ABMS lah, kalau daripada consultant it can be quite costly. However, untuk program-program seperti ABMS dan OACP ni dia lebih kepada inisiatif, dan saya percaya dia bukannya CSR, sebab saya pernah berbincang dengan pihak pendidikan, bahagian pendidikan masyarakat, di mana semasa mereka mengadakan perbincangan dengan pihak LHDN, fokus mereka adalah program-program CSR, program-program yang memberi program CSR dengan masyarakat, memberi benefit kepada masyarakat. Of course ABMS and OACP is within the organisation, jadi itu tidak diambil kira. Dan masa tu saya ada juga mention kenapa kita tidak generikkan cukai itu dengan mengatakan inisiatif-inisiatif pencegahan rasuah. Meaning it's not just confined to CSR, however to also encompass other initiative lah. Alright, but masa ketika tu mereka masih lagi ada perbincangan, dan ada yang mengusulkan supaya dia akan jadi ada satu tax deduction lain untuk inisiatif-inisiatif sebegitu. Dia berbeza dengan CSR. Okey, saya harap.
Terima kasih Puan. Sebenarnya di SPRM kita boleh bantulah, kita macam saya daripada SPRM juga. Okey, SPRM boleh bantu sebenarnya untuk membantu company-company menunjuk ajar macam mana cara nak buat corruption risk management, corruption risk assessment, ataupun kalau nak dapatkan khidmat pengurusan untuk pembinaan OACP ataupun ABMS pun kita ada pakar-pakar yang tersedia dekat SPRM, terutamanya dekat markah kita lah ataupun Akademi Pencegahan Rasuah Malaysia kita. yang Puan Zakiah adalah timbalan pengarah dekat sana. Okay. Boleh berhubung dengan SPRM untuk kami bantu kami tuan-tuan dan puan untuk pastikan yang trust principle tadi berada di dalam kami tuan-tuan dan puan, dan andai katalah na'udzubillah min zalik terpalit juga dengan safety capital A ni, maka kita dah defense kita sendiri untuk memastikan bahawa company dah buat dah semua perkara-perkara yang boleh menyekat kepada berlakunya rasuah, tetapi ini adalah masalah individu itu sendiri, bukannya masalah di dalam company. Okay, mungkin itulah yang mungkin kita boleh bantu, dan juga insentif safety capital ini macam Puan Zakiah kata bahawa ianya adalah untuk prevention, bukannya untuk mengambil tindakan semata terhadap company ini. Okay?
Boleh saya add? Saya setuju dengan Tuan Johari tadi yang mengatakan ada ramai juga I think kalangan para ahli ya, ACIO yang juga mempunyai kepakaran di dalam APMS dan juga di dalam OECP, kerana setengah-setengah syarikat, saya percaya syarikat-syarikat terutamanya di kalangan SME, mungkin mereka tidak ada peruntukan ya untuk membangunkan inisiatif-inisiatif sebegitu, mungkin dengan adanya kerjasama lah di antara ketua unit integriti. Sebenarnya benda ni boleh dibangunkan secara raman. Cuma ABMS tu mungkin tidak boleh lah sebab dia memerlukan pensijilan daripada pihak CB lah, certification body. Jadi insyaAllah oleh CP tu boleh kita kerjasama untuk membangunkan secara dalaman, kerana dengan adanya OECP ataupun corruption risk assessment, dia adalah menjadi satu titik permulaan lah untuk tuan-tuan dan puan-puan membangunkan inisiatif-inisiatif pencegahan rasuah, terutamanya kepada polisi-polisi anti-corruption, bribery, kepada berbagai garis panduan untuk menangani aktiviti-aktiviti rasuah lah dalam syarikat masing-masing lah ya. Okey, itu saja.
Okey, terima kasih Puan Zat. Kepuan ada nak tambah?
Tuan Johari, saya tambah sikit sebab tadi sebenarnya saya pun terpaksa Google kejap ABMS, OACP bukanlah term yang saya biasa sangat, tapi saya difahamkan itu adalah sistem dalaman dengan plan anti rasuah dalaman. Bila dalaman within the company, most of the time dia memang at business expense sebab dia sebahagian daripada human resource management, corporate governance within your company. So dia memang dah dibenarkan. Yang kita kata tax incentive ni sebab you buat program dekat luar, dia bukan kepada your company je benefit, it should benefit the community. Jadi maknanya dalam Akta Cukai Pendapatan kita boleh tolak perbelanjaan dalam menghasilkan pendapatan syarikat. Jadi yang semua good corporate governance tadi tu bolehlah dikatakan within syarikat. So memang dah dibenarkan. Yang tak dibenarkan ni sebab kat luar yang berlari-lari tu termasuk saya tu jarang lah kan. Tapi kiranya orang luar tapi tak bolehlah dikatakan sebagai pendapatan syarikat. Syarikat memang tak dapat pendapatan. Jadi kita bagi tax incentive untuk itu. Dan effort yang lain-lain tu sepaham saya selalunya memang dah dibenarkan lah. Terima kasih.
Okey, contohnya Puan, kalau macam kita kata contoh program CSR tadi, dia boleh declare sebagai memohon tax incentive, dan juga mungkin tak dia boleh declare sebagai donation, contohnya macam program kita ni atau yang nak menyumbang kan, boleh tak dia declare as a donation kepada program?
Derma yang dibenarkan untuk individu dan syarikat, dia ada approval dia. Approval tu tak mudah bawah Section 44(6). Ada bahagian di Jabatan Dasar yang handle. So sebenarnya MACC sudah memudahkan syarikat sebab dah ada kelulusan in principle kan secara dasar. Jadi konsep dia sama dengan derma sebab dalam slide saya kata tadi, seandainya tuan-puan dah dapat approval letter untuk program tuan-puan, tak boleh dah claim donation bawah subsection 44(6). Tak boleh dah claim 2 kali. Dan untuk dapat 44(6), unless syarikat you dah ada yayasan ke, for each program tu kena pergi kepada LHDN untuk kelulusan. Itu baru di pihak kami. Tapi ni pihak SPRM dah tolong puan-puan dah ada kelulusan dasar daripada MOF. Cuma kriteria apa tu yang kena hubungi SPRM. Ni dah shortcut lah kiranya untuk dapat kelulusan.
Tak panjang ke Puan, kalau mengikut pandangan Puan, proses itu akan orang kata ada red tape panjang ke?
Bunyi macam panjang sebab saya nak terangkan step tu one by one. Tapi sebenarnya zaman sekarang ni email je kan, just an email or phone call. Lepas tu saya rasa pengarah-pengarah besar ni semua dah ada, akan dipermudahkan lah urusan tersebut. Because I think everybody in SPRM macam Puan Zakiah kata pun amat mendukung lah program sebegini. One of the reason we have this program today untuk war-warkan lagi so that all of you involved dalam program sebegini kan Puan Zakiah, tuan-tuan.
Betul-betul. Itulah sebenarnya harapan kita supaya masing-masing tidak kira kita di mana peringkat sekalipun, sama ada MNC daripada company berhad, daripada company sumber berhad ataupun daripada enterprise sendiri yang nak bersama dengan Malaysia untuk memerangi rasuah sepenuhnya, maka kita ambil inisiatif ini. Insentif yang telah ditawarkan ini, sebab insentif ini bukan datang pada sepanjang masa kan, sepanjang masa, tapi baru saja diperkenalkan. Kalau sekiranya kita tak ambil, maka rugilah kepada syarikat kita untuk tujuan tersebut. Sebab peranan kita ini datang mungkin daripada individu kita, kemudian kita kalau sekiranya kita memiliki syarikat, maka syarikat kita juga menyumbang kepada pencapaian matlamat utama ini. Okey, terima kasih sekali lagi kepada semua partisipan yang mengambil bahagian. Kita masih lagi menerima soalan-soalan daripada tuan-tuan Puan untuk kita bertanyakan kepada dua panel hebat kita depan sana ini, dan kita juga ada pengarah-pengarah SPRM dan juga wakil pengarah SPRM depan ini untuk sama-sama kita berkongsi kalau sekiranya ianya berkaitan dengan dasar dan juga polisi yang dipegang oleh SPRM sendiri. Sebagai contohnya, adakah pengadu akan dilindungi? Mestilah kan. Kita ada Akta 711, Akta Pemberian Perlindungan Maklumat kepada pengadu-pengadu. Semua pengadu akan dilindungi. Individu identiti tuan-tuan dan puan juga akan dilindungi sehinggalah perkara tersebut sampai ke mahkamah dan sebagainya. In fact, kalau sekiranya tuan-tuan dan puan masuk ke dalam mahkamah sebagai saksi, ada satu lagi perlindungan daripada Akta Perlindungan Saksi pula yang diberikan kepada tuan-tuan dan puan. Kalau sekiranya keselamatan tuan-tuan dan puan kata dah memang terganggu sangat pun, kerajaan boleh mengambil inisiatif di bawah akta tersebut sehingga boleh tukar IC tuan-tuan dan puan. Okay? Supaya tidak dikenali oleh mereka-mereka ini. Sebab itulah kita punya hasrat supaya tuan-tuan dan puan boleh bersama-sama dengan MACC ataupun SPRM ini bagi kita menolak keseluruhannya. Kalau dengar je pelaku rasuah berlaku, ada bukti, teruslah menggunakan saluran-saluran yang aduan yang ada dekat SPRM ni. Kita dah pelbagai dah. Kalau tuan-tuan puan ada handphone, smartphone, tuan-tuan puan boleh download je apps SPRM dekat situ. Boleh je buat aduan bila-bila masa. Sebab jangan tak kuasa penilaian aduan dan maklumat dekat SPRM akan membincangkan aduan tuan-tuan puan daripada sekecil-kecil aduan sehinggalah ke sebesar-besar aduan pada setiap hari bekerja, insyaAllah. Jadi bersama-samalah dengan SPRM untuk tujuan kita membendung perlakuan rasuah ini terus berlaku dalam negara kita, dan insyaAllah hasrat daripada kerajaan terbaru juga untuk kita memerangi rasuah amat didokong oleh persatuan kita, Persatuan Pegawai Integriti Bataliah dan juga SPRM untuk tujuan kita sama-sama mengambil peran ini. Okey, macam saya pula ahli benda. Maaf. Okey, tuan-tuan puan, kita pergi kepada soalan yang ada dekat slider ini. Contohnya lah, adakah badan berkanun seperti Jaya Pahang juga boleh buat boleh dapat tax relief atau kalau ada buat program integriti dan juga anti rasuah? Okey, silakan Puan sikit. Pada kerajaan.
Dia ada dua aspek bila kata tax relief. Adakah Yayasan Pahang ada business income untuk nak set off against the tax relief, or does you mean macam Yayasan Pahang buat program integrity and then bila company join and contribute, you nak bagi your contributed tax relief? I'm not sure which one is which. Tapi when it comes to tax relief, there must be specific approval. So kalau nak buat program integriti dan anti rasuah, bagi pendapat personalnya, kalau pendapat official dia panjang, tuan-puan hendaklah memohon kepada lembaga hasil untuk mendapatkan kelulusan bawah seksyen-seksyen kami, mungkin seksyen 34, 44, tu cara panjang lah dan official. Cara shortcut dia, contact lah tuan-tuan pengarah kat depan ni, do a collaboration with them, Yayasan Pahang doing a collaboration with MACC endorse je program tu, straight dapat.
Tapi yang saya faham tak
lah ni personal.
Yang saya faham tak bayar cukai pun.
Itulah saya kata Yayasan Pahang, saya tak pastilah ada business income ke tak kan, sebab saya tak buat file Yayasan Pahang. Tapi mungkin apa yang dia tanya adalah sekiranya dia buat program dan company contribute. Of course company nak tax relief kan on the contribution. On Yayasan Pahang itself tak ada surat kelulusan, SPRM yang ada. Okay. Okay. Persons ni, seperti saya cakap, not just syarikat, dia include syarikat. So tetapi bawah section 346H, walaupun dia kata relevant gross income, tapi section tu sebenarnya jatuh dalam pendapatan perniagaan. Jadi soalan dia, Yayasan Pahang ada tak any, mungkin you ada anak syarikat ke ataupun a business entity kan, sebab yayasan besar. Kalau you ada business income bawah perenggan 4A Akta Cukai Pendapatan, itulah relevant gross income yang you boleh tolak tax incentive tadi. Jadi soalan tu complicated sikit. Kalau company ni senang, saya tahu memang diorang semua taxable income. So memang boleh tolak against your business income.
Okey, saya harap clear pasal perkara tu. Kita pergi pada Puan Z pula ya. How far polisi company able to defend company from court case?
Okay, ni
how far ni?
How far?
Sebab kita tak ada tested case lagi bagi 17 capital A ni. Mungkin pandangan Puan lah. Sebab kita dah ada very far.
How far?
Very far. Kalau macam Tuan kata very far sebenarnya. Sebab kita memang telah mengadakan semua adequate procedure, kita telah communicate kepada negara kan. Dan kita ada lagi prosedur-prosedur lain yang dibangunkan oleh Transparency International Malaysia. Kita ada checklist dia yang boleh dijadikan panduan. Itu pun.
Okay, soalan ni sebenarnya relevan dengan soalan how educate is educate. You know, soalan ni memang soalan yang sangat popular, lebih-lebih lagi di Malaysia tidak ada precedent case dan kita tak ada DPA, jadi maybe we can wait and see. However, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan kena prep dari sekarang. The most important thing, just refer to the 5 elements yang TRUST tu adakan, establishkan polisi yang merangkumi TRUST tu. Saya faham tak semua company besar tak semua company ada ramai employees seperti syarikat-syarikat besar. Kalau kita refer pada syarikat-syarikat besar, JLC, mereka semua dah ada tersusun semua dengan apa-apa certification semua pun yang ada. Tapi kita nak membantu juga syarikat-syarikat yang kecil ni macam SME ni. Sebenarnya macam satu statement by board of directors cover on the turn from the top punya commitment. And in fact what we recommended is that if company tu ada board of directors, to have a board in the board agenda berkaitan dengan isu-isu rasuah. Sebab sekarang ni saya rasa tak banyak di tempat board of directors punya meeting berdiskuskan perkara itu kerana mereka lebih kepada hala tuju, dasar syarikat, kepada making profit, whether it's how much is our ROI to the company and whatnot. But hardly we see that is being discussed, especially those on corruption risk, on corruption activity, isu-isu berkaitan corruption, how are we going to do in terms of section 17 capital A, apa yang kita perlu ready. Jadi as long as ada commitment from top management, Ada polisi-polisi, contoh seperti polisi-polisi code of business conduct, apa the do and the don'ts. Some company dia ada ABC anti-bribery corruption policy, ABC policy, dia merangkumi semua dalam tu. Ada conflict of interest, no give policy, and dia siap bagi senario bagaimana itu fall under corruption ataupun tidak. Sebab soalan-soalan yang ditujukan, ada yang mengatakan adakah itu gift, adakah itu corruption, CSR, adakah itu corruption, adakah itu projek CSR. Jadi untuk itu dia ada mungkin grey line yang perlu di communicate. Salah satu daripada TRGST tu kan. So if that is being done, that is the defense to the court in case court tanya how how do you what are the policies that you have on board? What do you do with the policy? Do you communicate it to your upstream, low stream, external and internal stakeholder, to your exporters, to the people that you are dealing business with, anak syarikat di luar negara, those kind of things is important. So those involve communication. And of course training pun important. Training kepada staff sendiri. Even some companies give training to their supplier, give training to whoever on board, new recruits kan, give training to them. So as long as the 5 TRUST tu dan elemen yang risk assessment sebenarnya sangat penting lah kalau kita nak stress on anti-corruption. In fact, if I were to relate on OACP, Organisation Anti-Corruption Plan, semuanya bermula dengan you assess your risk. Tak kira lah enterprise risk, tapi kalau OACP based on your governance, anti-corruption dengan integrity punya risk lah. So you have to diagnose or you have to access the risiko-risiko dalam syarikat tu. Dan bila you access tu, you have to be very open lah. Maksudnya kalau, some company they don't want to divulge, especially on corruption risk. They don't want to even mention it. It's a no-no business actually. But sebenarnya if we can tackle the risk prior to it happen, before audit masuk, so we have to prevent it before, the third layer of defense. Bila audit masuk, macam some case tu ada audit yang dapat tahu benda tu terjadi. Benda tu dah terjadi kan, masuk investigation. But if you can tackle it before it happen, that it will be even better with a stringent control. But of course the control have to be, reasonable so that dia tak adalah sampai rigid, tak boleh nak buat business tak boleh nak ke kiri atau ke kanan. And ada yang tanya berkaitan dengan no give policy. There are a lot of people who's doing no give policy. I would say that no give policy sebenarnya we can mention a give policy. When we develop a give policy, kita bukanlah nak mengatakan yang we welcome give daripada contractors and what not. We just want it to be very clear to our staff, to a lower level, middle level, sampailah ke atas board of directors on what are the gift yang permissible. Some company dia kata untuk yang perishable boleh, like flowers, food boleh. Tetapi some company question, if let's say there are abundant of food, when you say intangible datang 2 tan lori sangking awak tuan. So is that considered corruption or not? So that is, the scenario that we are looking for. I mean, we should look into. However, kita ada garis panduan lah untuk whatever gift in the company. Say kalau kita ada buku register ke apa. So this is what the court will ask. Then they want to see the evidence that you have communicated, the policy is in place, it has been terangkan kepada anak syarikat, kepada employees on what the policy is all about, the do and the don'ts, especially on anti-corruption, because tak banyak syarikat yang ada anti-corruption policy lah, I would say. Polisi-polisi lain mereka ada macam code of ethics, code of business conduct. Sometimes code of business conduct tak mention pasal anti-corruption activities. Dia cuma mention pakai baju, kena pakai attire corporate law, benda-benda macam tu. They didn't address.
Kita kena revise dah balik kan.
Yeah, look into it lah. If you go back to your companies, look at actually HR banyak jagalah dekat syarikat. HR banyak jaga pasal tata tertib and what not. So look back about the policy yang syarikat sedia ada sekarang and start to build your committee, risk committee within the organisation. So to answer whether it's educate to quite subjective, but at least you have prep, dah ada lah.
Ya, dah ada dah benda tu kan.
Dekat dalam syarikat.
Okey. Terima kasih Puan di atas penerangan yang panjang lebar tentang prinsip trust tadi, TRUST tadi. Dan itulah sebenarnya macam mana kita nak educate dalam company kita untuk pastikan utamanya company kita boleh communicate benda tu kepada semua level di dalam company kita, dan juga kita boleh membudayakan perkara tersebut di dalam pelaksanaan bisnes kita daripada sehari ke sehari. Okey, tuan-tuan dan puan, saya nak buka peluang kepada tuan-tuan dan puan yang berada dekat dewan ni, yang mulia ini, kalau sekiranya nak berkongsi apa-apa ataupun nak bertanya kepada panel, kita boleh pergi kepada mic sana. Kita hanya melayan banyak soalan daripada slide ini. Saya yakin ada tuan-tuan dan puan yang nak bertanya kepada kita masih ada lagi masa untuk tujuan tersebut. Contohnya tuan daripada MCM contohnya, Malaysian Corruption Watchdog ke? MCW kan? Kalau ada pandangan tuan ke berkenaan dengan perjalanan program ini? Tak ada tuan. Okay, terima kasih tuan. Okay, silakan kalau sekiranya ada soalan-soalan atau pandangan daripada FOS untuk tujuan kita dapatkan penjelasan dan sebagainya. Ada ke? Okay, kalau tak ada tak apa, boleh fikir-fikirkan untuk bertanya, tetapi saya nak pergi kepada soalan ni juga tuan. Ada banyak soalan juga berkenaan, walaupun Puan dah nyatakan dalam pembentangan tadi, tetapi masih lagi nak bertanyakan tentang dah pernah ada ketindakan kepada syarikat yang berkaitan, dan ada juga rakan kita di dalam dewan yang mulia ini telah Google mungkin yang menyatakan bahawa kes pristine offshore adalah kes pertama ataupun presiden kes di bawah Section 70 Kapitel A ini dekat Malaysia. Memang kita tahu kalau memang SPRM pun telah buat tangkapan dan juga telah bawa perkara ini di dalam penyiasatan, tapi mungkin pun ada maklumat yang ataupun Tuan Rusdi adakah nak kongsikan?
Sedikit saya nak share sebab soalan yang ke atas tu ada soalan, lepas tu ada jawapan dah. Baik. Baik, begini, dalam kes pristine offshore ni seperti mana yang Puan Zakiah explain tadi, kes ni masih pending di mahkamah. Kes ni masih pending di mahkamah. Ada beberapa perkara isu yang akan diselesaikan lah dalam kes tu, dan saya tak boleh nak disclose. Ini benarlah, itu saja jawapan kalau merujuk kepada kes pertama yang kita tuduh di bawah Section 17A. Kata saya dibicarakan di Mahkamah Shah Alam, kata silap saya. Okey, itu saja yang kedua, kerana kita tetap mahu kata prejudis, subjudis, macam-macam lagi dalam kes yang sedang dibicarakan. Okey, itu saja.
Terima kasih tuan. Itulah sebenarnya memang polisi daripada SPRM sendiri, kes-kes yang masih lagi berjalan dan juga tidak ada keputusan di mahkamah, kita tidak boleh mendedahkan apa-apa pengumuman, takutnya dia boleh mengganggu siasatan. Jadi tuan-tuan, kita dah hampir ke 11.30 pagi. Saya rasa ada tak soalan-soalan lagi daripada PLOS untuk tujuan tersebut? Kalau tak ada, saya nak ambil masa 5 minit ini untuk kita wrap up lah atas apa yang kita bincangkan. Mungkin saya pergi kepada Puan Norashikin dahulu untuk memberikan kesimpulan terhadap 2 jam perbincangan kita dengan pembentangan dan juga perbincangan kita tentang tax insentif yang baru ini yang boleh digunakan oleh company-company. Silakan.
Okay, seperti saya katakan, tax incentive is an effort by government to promote certain activities or program. So by approving MACC proposal to give tax incentive for anti-corruption program means that government is really supporting this program. As I said, for you to get tax relief for a program outside your company activities is not that easy. So this is already a shortcut. Thank you to our friends from SPRM. So do take advantage of that, because I personally believe that it would be beautiful to live in a country that totally free from corruption. So let us all strive towards that. In term of LHDN, dapat surat tu, claim lah. Tak ada apa-apa lagi dah. Cuma kena simpan surat tu 7 tahun lah. Kalau kena audit dengan LHDN, kita permudahkan self-claim bila dah dapat surat approval. Tak ada apa-apa proses kelulusan di LHDN. Tak seperti kalau company nak dapat kelulusan untuk derma bawah subsection 446, company kena submit sendiri ke LHDN. LHDN nanti semakkan kami. Selalu orang takut sikit kan. Kita very particular dan thorough lah. This one with the support letter from SPRM, terus pergi MOF, isi borang, dan setahu saya proses tu pun tak panjang lah. Macam sekarang ni everything can be done via email. Tak payah pun nak panjat pejabat SPRM or MOF kan. Kalau dipermudahkan lah urusan. Pasca PKP ni, one of them is that banyak benda kita boleh berurusan online. Nak buat meeting pun boleh buat meeting online. Jadi sangat dipermudahkan bagi saya. Jadi ambillah peluang ini tuan-tuan dan puan-puan untuk syarikat masing-masing. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Norashikin di atas wrap-up yang telah diberikan. Ambil peluang macam persyaratan, ambil peluang yang terbentang luas ini untuk tujuan kita membantu negara kita untuk menjadi sebuah negara yang bebas rasuah, insyaAllah. Jadi kita nak berbalik kepada Puan Zakiah, mungkin wrap-up daripada Puan Zakiah terhadap forum kita. Zakiah.
Okey, pertamanya saya mengucapkan terima kasihlah kerana partisipan datang ramai dekat program sebegini untuk sama-sama kita perangi rasuah di Malaysia. Irregardless of what the survey that I've disclosed to you, however, untuk syarikat-syarikat di luar sana sekiranya masih lagi tak tahu ataupun terfikir-fikir bagaimana untuk membangunkan apa orang kata tu adequate procedures, preventive measures in terms of anti-corruption, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan boleh go through sedikit marketing untuk Malaysian Anti-Corruption Academy, sebab kita ada kursus, banyak kursus sebenarnya. Salah satu kursus yang boleh membantu saya rasa tuan-tuan dan puan-puan adalah kursus Certified Integrity Officer, di mana kat situ kita boleh groom pegawai-pegawai daripada kalangan syarikat tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. Mungkin boleh membantu dalam membangunkan polisi-polisi di syarikat tuan-tuan dan puan-puan lah. Dia ada panjang juga khususnya kalau public sector panjang juga, tapi untuk syarikat tak berapa panjang. Jadi tapi ada sedikit fees lah, I would say, but pada saya dia sangatlah berbaloi untuk kita yang I would say first timer ataupun baru nak mula mendekati atau nak faham berkaitan dengan apa yang perlu kita laksanakan untuk membantas rasuah. Kita boleh hantar pegawai-pegawai kita dekat kursus CEIO tersebut. I think kami ni semua adalah bekas-bekas CEIO, belum? Okay. Alumni Certified Integrity Officer all around Malaysia. Dan the beauty of it is that we have alumni for CEIO at a different entity, different countries. Kita menjadikan itu satu source di mana kita boleh bertanya dengan syarikat-syarikat di luar sana, macam mana you all buat conflict of interest policy ya. Jadi dengan secara tak langsung kita akan reduce our cost untuk kita appoint consultant di luar sana, whereby tuan-tuan dan puan-puan boleh membangunkan dalaman sahaja. Polisi tak perlu canggih, tak perlu nak kena bukukan ke apa. Of course you kena untuk evidence documented, tetapi it can be in soft copy as well. However, content dia precise. Short and precise pun okay. So that's why the most important thing is that pegawai-pegawai dalaman syarikat itu faham apa itu kandungan-kandungan polisi, prosedur atau guideline berkaitan anti-corruption. Jadi salah satu avenue-nya boleh visit our Maka punya portal, dan besides CIO kita ada banyak lagi program-program lain atau kursus lain yang boleh ditawarkanlah kepada syarikat-syarikat di luar sana, termasuklah OACP, Corruption Risk Management and so forth lah. Alright, so sama-samalah kita, I think with incentive we have dengan LHDN. So we are expanding our strategic partners in Bentras Rasuah, starting with LHDN and ACIO punya persatuan. So we are actually a big friends all over Malaysia, and for us to inculcate budaya bebas rasuah di dalam everyday life business, everyday business. Okay, itu saja.
Terima kasih kepada di atas rekod tersebut. Oh, bagus, panjang, tepat, padat dan sebagainya. Alhamdulillah kita telah sampai ke penghujung forum integriti dan anti rasuah sempena Hari Internasional Antarabangsa 2022 ini. Kami berharap agar apa yang telah dikupaskan yang disampaikan kepada tuan-tuan dan puan menjadi satu ilmu ataupun pendedahan terbaru kepada tuan-tuan dan puan, dan ini boleh dipahami dan juga diamalkan bila balik ke company masing-masing, insyaAllah. Jadi saya bagi pihak majlis merakamkan ucapan terima kasih sekali lagi kepada Puan Zakiah, sebagai pertama kita, Puan Norashikin, Puan kedua-dua, dan banyak juga kepada Tuan Rosli, Pengarah SPRM di Kelantan yang turut memberikan pandangan dan juga memberikan maklumat-maklumat terkini di dalam soalan-soalan yang ditanyakan. Dan yang paling saya hargai adalah tuan-tuan dan puan. Berikan tepukan bagi kepada tuan-tuan dan puan kerana telah mengambil bahagian yang aktif di dalam perbincangan kita. Saya amat-amat menghargainya. Jadi dengan itu saya mohon maaf anda kata ada tersalah perbuatan, tersalah kata sepanjang saya mengendalikan majlis forum ini, dan yang lemah itu adalah kelemahan diri saya sendiri, yang baik itu adalah rezeki daripada Allah SWT. Saya sudahi forum kita pada pagi ini dengan wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dan saya serahkan kembali kepada pengarah majlis. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Tuan Johari. Begitulah tadi satu forum yang sangat menarik dengan kumpulan topik terkini dan berguna untuk kita semua. Hangat tajuk tadi. Okay, majlis merakamkan ucapan terima kasih kepada Yang Berusaha Puan Zakiah Binti Hassan dan Puan Norashikin binti Abdul Aziz, panel forum, dan Tuan Muhammad Johari bin Abdul Kadir yang telah bertindak sebagai moderator forum. Terima kasih juga kepada para peserta yang turut mengambil bahagian dalam sesi soal jawab yang diadakan sepanjang forum berlangsung. Okay. Seterusnya majlis diteruskan dengan upacara penyampaian cenderahati kepada panel forum dan moderator. Maaf Majlis dengan penuh takzim mempersilakan Yang Berusaha Tuan Muhammad Nasrul Ikram bin Azhar, Setiausaha Persatuan Pegawai Integriti Bertauliah Malaysia, untuk mengiringi Yang Berbahagia Ketua Penolong Kanan Pesuruhjaya Tuan Hairuzam Muhammad Amin Layis Hamim, Pengarah SPRM Negeri Pahang, ke pentas bagi acara penyampaian cenderamata kepada panel dan moderator. Dipersilakan Ketua Penolong Kanan Pesuruhjaya Puan Zakiah Binti Hassan, panel pertama, untuk menerima cenderamata daripada pihak penganjur. Dipersilakan Puan Norashikin Abdul Aziz untuk menerima panel kedua untuk menerima cenderamata. Dan yang terakhir dipersilakan Yang Berusaha Encik Muhammad Johari bin Abdul Kadir, moderator forum, untuk menerima cenderamata. Majlis merakamkan ucapan terima kasih kepada Yang Berbahagia Tuan Pengarah SPRM Pahang di atas kesudian menyampaikan cenderamata kepada panel dan moderator itu tadi. Tibalah kita kepada penghujung acara. Yang bahagia tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian, kita ada sesi fotografi ya. So, dijemput Pengarah SPRM Pahang, wakil kepada Pengarah SPRM Terengganu dan Puan Razimah untuk naik ke pentas. Diminta kepada semua hadirin untuk bersama berdiri bagi grup foto